I got the last word in.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the live portion of the stream. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Wednesday night as we kind of watch the replay there of the North American side of the international finals from Sunday. As promised, we've got some of the O7 guys here to kind of talk through things. You can see who's talking here in chat. Obviously, Zath is clicking things, but obviously I'm lit up here, and everybody else is just here to hang out. So. I've got a question. I'll start, and then we'll go around here because I'm sure Zath and Sneaky have some questions as well. But I wanted to start with when we talked to you guys. Probably the last time we had an in-depth chat with anybody from O7 really was probably back following the NA finals in King of the Sea V, right? So that's been 9 months. That was like February, right? I think we talked to Pullicat after the cross server event, but. Back then we talked to you guys about the preparation you put in, the practice. What did you guys do to prepare for this event, right? Obviously, there's been a lot of ships come into the meta. Things have changed. What kind of prep did you guys do leading into King of the Sea?
Same amount of scrims, really. And just a lot more open discussion. Like the guys have been a lot more open with what they think, especially during the games, too. So just everybody coming together has really helped along with the scrim.
That makes sense. I mean, go ahead.
I think also just looking at the new ships that were actually out, they had just plenty of interesting options now. Like the many favorite choice was obviously the Stalingrad because people liked having the idea of an extra battleship floating around possibly.
The addition of the legendary modules between COD 6 and 7 were also a very important addition to the game, because I don't think the midway strategy would have been possible without the legendary module.
All right, so I am not 100% familiar with carriers. Help me out. What is the midway legendary module?
The midway legendary module increases the bomber HP by 30% and decreases plane speed overall, including fighters, by 5%.
Okay, so you're giving up speed for survivability.
Mm-hmm. In our testing, or in my personal testing with CV, I really don't see much of a difference in that speed actually has in terms of carrier versus carrier combat outcomes. Generally, you only notice the 5% speed difference when you're traveling a very long distance with your carrier's planes. Generally, that distance only becomes noticeable at like 20-kilometer distances that you travel. Outside of that, it's very negligible.
Okay, go ahead, Zath. You said you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no.
Warlord, this is an important question because you were talking about the legendary mod for the midway. During the international cross server, I looked at least at my account and there were no legendaries. Were you guys all given the legendary?
We had everything.
We had everything.
Good to know.
Now, okay, so while we're on the topic, let's touch on this real briefly before we get away. I don't know if this is state secrets, comrade, but what legendary modules did you guys use on the various ships? I assume the OMNI, because that is a very good module. What else?
No, we did not.
No,
we did not. Only really the gearing.
You didn't use the OMNI one. I wonder. Okay, no. So what was the thought process there? You still wanted the stealth?
Well, you're giving up 1 kilometer of concealment plus, and in certain situations, you need to be able to stealth up. In hindsight, I don't know. I mean, I play a lot of Henry in randoms, and it's, I guess I didn't really know if I was going to be open water all the time. If I did, I would have probably just taken it anyway for the range. But,
well, there was that one bet. Wasn't that you on Islands of Ice when you went and torped the Harugumo into someone's smoke?
Oh,
yeah, Jones. That was me. That was Jones.
That was Jones. I got them backwards in the middle of the live cast, and I caught it later, but it was Jones way over on like the 1 or 2 line or something like that.
Well, I'm just thinking that in that situation...
BFK was supposed to be with me, but he was off doing Henry thing.
It's called doing the tractor pulls. You gotta farm the crops, right? Open water Henry, boys. That's how it needs to be played.
Do you usually try to cap B-cap with your Henry?
I mean, we don't cap.
We don't want to see the cursor that's supposed to be on the other side of the map.
So Sneaky Snake here. I got a question for you guys more on the tactics side of things. Would it be safe to say that you guys built your strat around the carrier, or did you build your carrier around the overall strat that you had in mind for all the other ships?
It was a little bit of both, I'd have to. We toyed with the idea of Stalingrad, but then I mean, I was just kind of like, what's the most cancer ship, right? It's the Wooster. So let's just bring all Woosters. So it started out being all Woosters and 2 Montanas and a hat. And then Warlord was like, well, with all the AA, should I bring Mick? And we're all like, yes, you should. So it just kind of formed. Like I said, everybody's really had their input, and it's been crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I was going to say, or I guess ask about that would be, since this formula is now a known quantity and that it works, do you foresee even more teams next time around trying to go with the midway? Because we all know the joke that the hack is the only really good carrier, and certainly while it has aspects that are better than the midway, do you foresee that maybe your guys' success would represent a shift in the meta, not just on the NA, but across all the servers to get more teams to think, I guess, outside of the box?
You'd have to say it forces people to at least look. I mean, if they're seriously competitive, you have to.
I mean, I think our reason for going that way is just the devastating potential of the AP bombs, right? And we kind of figured everyone is going to take Stalingrads or Moskvas. Why? It's the new hot ship. It, like Jones said, it gives you essentially an additional battleship or two in terms of staying power and durability, but they're very generally played static. So, and they don't have the AA suite to be able to dispatch of a full midway strike, even with defensive fire activated. So, I mean, that ship. And what else do people take? Des Moines and Woosters, all of which can be dev struck, by AP bomb. So it's almost, why not? I mean, it just seems like the hack is almost impotent when it comes to strike power against extremely high powered AA.
They don't even
ships.
have to be high powered AA if they're if the hack's running the legendary. Defensive fire is going to shred any strike back.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Well, you should definitely talk about your tricks.
My tricks.
You should talk about your tricks, man. Because when I first saw that, I was taken aback.
So one of the things that I employ as in all of my carriers is evasive maneuvers. I don't think it's utilized very often by other carriers because many carriers don't see it as much of a bet. But the evasive maneuvers, for all of you that don't know, adds an additional 75% HP to the bombers, but decreases their speed by 30%. Now, normally people, only when it's returning to the carrier, normally people will think that's a useless skill because that implies that it only occurs after you strike something. But if you watch in the quarterfinals, like against I Hate CV, if you successfully bait a defensive fire with evasive maneuvers and then strike something, you end up losing around 50% less of your strike compared to otherwise. So with that reduction in losses, you can strike significantly more often in a match because you don't have to worry about bomber attrition. In general, the under evasive maneuvers, for example, the AP bombers on the midway have 4,900 HP, which is more than enough to survive defensive fire to an acceptable margin. You'll lose around 2 or 3, but it should give you enough HP to actually survive the DF, and then wait until the DF is down and kill them with your torpedo bombers and or dive bombers. The Minotaur, though, I should say the Minotaur has been pretty interesting this season. Most people think the Minotaur is immune to AP bombers completely, but during the shatter matches that you guys have seen, the Minotaur on both occasions, the Minotaur got double citadel by AP bombers. So it's not completely immune, but it's somewhat resistant too.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was actually a good point you brought up, because it was impressive to not just see the Stalingrad kind of fall at the hands of the bombers, but also in certain circumstances, as you mentioned, even Minotaur defensive fire with, I would imagine, AFT and manual fire control is sometimes not good enough to stand up. So on that note, though, the last thing that I'd like to ask is, and this is towards you, Warlord.
Mhm.
Overall, how did you feel that you did against one of the best carrier players out there?
So if you guys, I was watching Farah's last match, and it made me realize that he completely gave up trying to strafe me. During the last match, primarily, I'm guessing because of the fact that I've been dodging his strafes the entire time during the series. He is most certainly a respectable CV player. There's no doubt about that. He with the efforts he's put towards the CV community in general from the European server and all servers in general has been very helpful for, I would imagine, any upcoming competitive CVs. Overall, fighter combat wise, I really can't comment on that because it's kind of midway in Hakiryu. I unless it's in the back, I really can't really comment on how good he is with his fighters. If it were Hakiryu versus Hakiryu in open in a vacuum, then I might be able to tell. But outside of that, Farah did get past my fighters on many occasions. I think BFK is by far the most strikeable target for Farah during the series.
Thanks.
You didn't tip him well enough before the start of the series, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the midway, I would say, the midway is if there were a hypothetical COTS 8 like in the next month or so, I would say the midway would have at least 40% of the teams using it. You can have equal spotting damage, like the Hakiryu. If you bring a Hakiryu, most people bring the Hakiryu for spotting, and on average, you should expect around 150,000 in spotting, up to maybe 250 if you're lucky, and the enemy has very high HP. But otherwise, the midway can do that and also strike things, which is one benefit the midway brings that the Hakiryu does. The only problem with the midway is it's very inflexible. If you lose a squadron, it will take 1 minute and 30 seconds for it to ready up, and it's just you're gonna not have planes in the air for a full minute or 2 minutes, and then your team is basically without you for that duration.
One of the things that I noticed, and I had a brief conversation in your Discord the other night with William about it. Your team compositions. It took myself at least a couple of games to kind of realize this as we started watching you guys. I think the first time we cast you was in the semifinals. That your team compositions were largely built to the triumvirate of Midway, Montana, and Worcester. Like that was kind of the core of your team. And then, you've got with those five cruiser slots or whatever, you could sprinkle in an Hindenburg or an Henri depending on what you saw or what you wanted to do on a certain map. Was that something you guys theory crafted out in advance, talking through team compositions, or was it something that you kind of, for lack of a better word, stumbled into while doing your preparation and your scrimming before the event?
Well, like I said, we initially started out with 5 Worcester.
Okay.
And then the game before we played Issue, I Hate, we obviously keyed that they brought a lot of Stalins and Moss. So we're like, do we want to bring some Hindenburg? So actually, the day before, there's like 5 or 6 of us in a training room, seeing how fast we could burn down a Stalingrad with 2 Hindenburgs. And so that kind of came about just talking with everybody before and realizing that our comp could have a problem with it. But bringing the flexibility of like Henrys or Hindenburgs, definitely you can see that we stuck with it because it just offered us a little bit more flexibility. And 2 or 3 Worcesters is more than enough AA to almost deplay a hack.
Yeah, good points.
I got one other question for you guys. Which series did you think was harder, Omni or PSV?
Oh, that's a very tough one.
Damn,
I would definitely
sneaky
say
with the tough questions.
From my perspective, the Omni series was tougher. A lot of it was the build up to it. The whole EU versus NA debacle that's gone on for a little while. So during the Omni series, at least from a personal perspective, I usually am not one to get nervous or feel nervous, but the nerves were going for that one. And the first game, I think, calmed everything. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I know for myself, it calmed everything. That 300-point plus comeback was a big morale boost to us. Like, hey, we can actually play with these guys. They're not, they're not Ivan Drago from Rocky IV. They're not they bleed like we do. We can win.
Absolutely.
If I had to answer the question, personally, I felt more stressed during the NA versus EU event, primarily because of all the technical issues that were happening. If you guys weren't aware, one of our Battleship mains, Potato Quality, his internet went out for the entire duration of the matches.
After we called the restart in the first game, he lost his internet.
What else? Oh, I disconnected during game 4. That was very fun.
Was it 4 or it was 4?
Game 4.
It was 4.
Game 4.
It was on Shattered.
Yep, it was.
Yeah. I completely disconnected during that. What else happened?
People were dropping from our team speak all night.
Oh yes, constant disconnects from our team speak.
My motherboard blew up, so I was not even available to play the entire series.
I think BFK said that he spent the day basically watching the stream from his car with his phone.
That's dedication, man.
I'd have to say both were really close for me too, but NA, just because you obviously want to win, your side of the tournament. And PSV always plays us hard, and we knew it was going to be tough.
Yeah.
It went 5 games, and it was a very stressful match.
It's all good to get a little jittery, McNutted. I've been doing this now for coming up on 2 years, and when that third place match started, I still had my hand jittering a little bit on the mouse. So it's totally normal.
Especially for me, if you've watched our games, you've seen the positions they send me to go die in.
Yes,
I'm the token fire pig for the team. I mean, if I die, it's a +20 morale boost to the rest of the team. There's a little buff that pops up. You casters can't see it, but it does pop up. It's kind of like the arms race. So especially on Islands of Ice, the third match, 4.7 million potential damage tank during that whole time.
By being next to him.
I was just going to say, I got to jump here, and I said this in chat earlier when we were watching the replay of Game 3. McNutted, to me, you are absolutely the MVP of Game 3. I can't imagine you guys winning that match. I won't say as easily, because it was not an easy match, but you drew so much fire. They obviously just hated that you were in that spot, and it just felt like for most of the game, they were powerless to do anything about it.
Well, they kind of were, because they screwed up their Yamato positioning.
Well, yeah, I mean, we I've talked about that with a couple other people as well. Like Game 3, to me, felt like this weird confluence of events. Right, the match starts, and immediately we see OMNI send both their battleships to A, which we don't usually see any team do, much less a team of this caliber. They send Strangers all the way to the east flank by himself, which he does okay for 5 or 6 minutes until he gets nuked. And then they have to start redeploying through the backfield. In the meantime, one of the battleships they send east just gets burned down like 60-70% of his HP. And so by like the 7-8 minute mark, they just look incredibly disoriented. Like they're just not entirely positive what they should be doing. And to me, so much of it hinged on, they stuck those destroyers in A. They held them there. They kept them there. They were determined to stay there. And then eventually you guys were just like, nah, we've had enough of this, and took care of business.
I definitely say on that match, though, you have to give a shout out to Potato.
Oh, no question.
If you just notice, every time his smoke is up, he is there smoking me up. Otherwise, I die 10 minutes before I actually die. Yep. But that position was very valuable to us. You'll notice that Strangers walks up in the Stalingrad pointed into BCAP, and we're just allowed to, basically get a free ship out of the deal, which is huge in competitive. Anytime you can trade out for free was a big boost to that match going, that map going forward.
Didn't you farm like 200+ K while tanking all that damage?
Yes, yeah. At the end of that match, I think I was somewhere over like 220,000 damage.
Jesus.
With 4.7 million in return.
So
I mean, it was a very clutch position, but it doesn't work if we don't have the threat of the midway. If we don't have Potato there with a constant smoke.
I would love to see your screen caps of your battle summaries of that game.
That position doesn't really work if they split up the Montana, their battleships too. The big reason for him living that long is because they didn't have the battleship crossfire.
Right.
That most teams
that's
would
very
use.
true. In a lot of our scrims, we've gone to that same position, and if they do have a battleship over at sea, that position becomes very, very tough to maintain staying there, just because of those arcing shells coming from the sea.
Well, and you were able to get into that island in the first place because both the battleships were on the other side of it.
Yeah, in our scrims too, a lot of it, that was the first time we've ever smoked me into it, and that was more out of a necessity. Usually I get my teeth kicked in going in there and lose half my HP. I took quite a shot going in this time, but Potato with the clutch smoke going in, which was just kind of, he did that on his own. That's something we haven't done in any of our scrims going forward.
On that position, while I was watching the game, I felt that Omni's main win condition was to kill you there, and obviously they really weren't able to. I mean, they chunked you down quite a bit, but you were able to stay alive. It's a little bit of a hypothetical question, but if they would have been able to kill you, McNutted, do you guys think that you would have had enough board position to hold on, or do you think that that was the key, the pivot to your entire plan, having you sitting there, being able to have the effect on the game that you did?
I definitely think that we still could have pulled that out. Anytime, especially in competitive, that you have to spend so much time trying to get rid of one ship in a position and it doesn't happen when you want it, it allows the other team to position their ships properly. As later on in the match, Jones is already pushing up the 1-2 line to deal with the destroyers.
That torpedo was so funny.
Yeah, he's torping DDs.
Torpedo was amazing.
We have our Hindenburg going into the sea cap, catching the CV out of position. So, I mean,
torping the CV.
If they get the kill when they wanted it, I don't think we do as well. But because of the amount of time that it took, I think it allowed us to position our ships across the board where we wanted them and dictate the match going forward.
For having a result like that, I hope you got more Velveeta out of the deal.
What's interesting, guys, on that particular map? One of our battleships, Dank, flooded down pretty much within the 5-minute mark, I believe. So we played that with one battleship.
But I remember when he went down, I'm looking at him like,
oh yeah,
what the hell?
we kind of missed it. Like I saw, and I said this in chat, I saw the torpedoes. I saw Yuri launch the torpedoes. He was on towards the bottom end of the B cap, and he pushed them out through the islands, out towards where William was. And I thought, this is like 12, 13 kilometers. There's no way those are going to hit anything. And then I look up 3 minutes later, and William floods out, and I'm going, whoa, what the hell happened here?
Wait, guys, was it William or Potato Quality that flooded out?
It was William. It was William.
Wasn't it Potato? Wait, but
no,
wasn't it
was
Potato
Will.
Quality?
He
was
hit
William.
his damage.
I'm just messing
a
with
little
him.
early, and
so go ahead, Zach.
I got a couple of questions for you guys. One of the things that really struck me casting it when we got to game 4 was, for the first time in recent memory, it felt like an EU team was responding to an NA team's composition. When we loaded up game 4 and we noticed that Farah changed to a midway. And I'm just curious from you guys, what was your reaction to that? And did that change the way that you played that battle?
we knew he would. We had a high chance. We knew there was a high chance of him bringing a mid, because Shatter's so close up and the AA bubbles are so overlapping that like the hack can't really do anything with all the AA behind islands. Like, so we've seen PSV actually do it too. So we knew there was a high probability of them bringing midway on Shatter.
I don't remember if we actually spec'd out our Worcesters for AA spec on Shadow. I don't think
we didn't end up respecing, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we throughout the matches we spent the entire time in non-fully AA spec Worcesters, basically. Which is actually kind of crazy considering how strong the AA was regardless.
Well, you were giving up the radar, the AA module for additional range, right? So it wasn't like it was a complete waste.
I do think like one of the underlying things, that map in the midway change wasn't us dictating the terms to them, but there were other ones throughout this series. Game 1, they bring a Republic, it gets farmed to death. never see a republic again.
Yep.
They were persistent with bringing the Stalingrad, bringing strangers in the Stalingrad, and you see Game 5, the crucial game, they do not bring a Stalingrad because they're tired of getting it struck out or just farmed. So there were little changes where we tried to dictate the meta going forward for them and make them adapt to us. That one wasn't really. We did have a pretty good idea that, we'd seen it before. People tend to bring Midway on that map just because of the island's positioning.
It felt like every time I looked up, Strangers was either mostly dead or completely dead.
Yeah, I didn't realize this until after the series, but I didn't realize how many times I actually ended up striking Strangers during the series. Like, I think 60% of the time I was the cause for him dying in some way, shape, or form, and I just realized that after the series. And
Well, yeah, I got a beautiful shot of you striking him in game 1, I think it was, Sea of Fortune.
yeah, game 1.
The Sea of Fortune strike, and then the Islands of Ice strike, and then you had some good AP bombs on him on North. He didn't die that game, but he spent most of the game fairly low. So let's see, what have I got left here?
Another question for you guys.
I was going to say, I think I've asked all of mine. Keep going, Zaf.
All right. This is what happens when Raptor and I do too much together, is we kind of know when to jump in.
He literally just asked the Midway question that I had written down, so it's fine. Keep going.
Well, so and actually it ties in perfectly with you guys. And I think McNutted, your comment earlier about Potato 69 smoking you and stuff like that. I had commented, I think, to Raptor on stream at one point, that everything that you guys do for the most part is with somebody else. You're very rarely ever by yourself. That's, I'm guessing, by design.
Except BFK, sorry.
Yeah, BFK is the lone.
They always send me alone. Sorry.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Except, because you have an odd number, right? Because you got the carrier someplace. So, well, no, they're still even. I don't know. But anyway, do you guys, is that just something that you kind of drill into each other when you're doing your scrims and practicing? Like, I always have a wingman, so to speak.
That's
Definitely.
sort of, I think, just the nature of our composition, because the Woosters can't necessarily hold everything alone. They always need something else there to either punch out, a battleship or a cruiser or something, or to give them eyes. So
Well, a lot of it, the running joke in our clan is BFK doesn't know how to get off the A line ever. So when you see him off on his own, we're just used to it, because we'll ask him to push, and he'll be like, I'm pushing, and he's sailing the white line in the back. So the rest of us, we tend to operate in pairs of two. But yeah, definitely back to the whole comp thing. That's the way it's set up. So as a Wooster player, I need to be in range of the Henry or the Montana. If he wants to strike one of them, he needs to go through me. As long as I haven't misplayed and get my teeth kicked in, which in game 4 and 5 I mess up pretty badly. So,
All right. Well, thank you.
Snake, you got anything else?
Nope, that's all I got, man.
Well, guys, I think that's Zaf. You got something?
Yeah, I want to know how hammered you guys all got that night.
How what? I'm sorry.
How hammered?
How did you celebrate?
Unfortunately, I don't drink, but I live in Canada, so you can probably figure it.
Well, first I had to make up to my wife because I was screaming so loudly in excitement that I woke up the baby.
No!
I made Mother Hen mad, so that one probably took a good couple hours there, and then after that, my nerves were calmed down, so it's time to recap the whole events in a calmer.
This is pretty disappointing, but I went back to doing Hulk after the series ended. Yeah, I mean,
it's all good. I'm in college too.
Doesn't it kind of suck? Like real life just kind of creeps right back in.
We had a viewing party. We kind of all just chilled. A whole bunch of people from other clans got on our team speak, and we just kind of rewatched some of the games and just shot the shit for a bit. And we were really enjoying a lot of the memes. I mean, a lot of clans were just making tons of memes.
Oh yeah,
the memes have been endless and glorious.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We're very thankful for all of the memes.
So, C Raptor, which memes are better, the victory over EU memes or the 90th?
Oh,
Don't sneaky. I'm gonna fire you if you bring that up again, and I'm not
Yeah.
kidding.
Okay.
So
Matt memes for life.
I gotta say though that's been great though. After we've won the EU show match, a lot of our players have been getting, congrats in game via in-game messages and stuff. So that's been pretty cool too.
as it should be. And I said this earlier in chat, and that in general, if we paint the EU server with a broad brush, okay. In general, the EU population, certainly on the competitive side of the house, has looked down on the NA side of competitive for a long time. And in fairness to them, we've never really given them much of a reason to not, let's say, right? There have been previous show matches. I know Sneaky and I played in a couple where
we got our teeth kicked in it.
Well, not the first one we definitely did, right? The second one we won some games, and I feel like I don't remember, but I know we won some games. I don't remember if we won a match.
We beat TTT.
I feel like we beat TTT in a match, right? But then, of course, the one that happened earlier this year, following King of the Sea VII, was not a great showing. The PSV Omni series in that was a pretty good set, and that went 2-1 because PSV I think claimed the first game, and I think very much like this particular series, Omni was like, whoa, like what happened here, But then of course you guys playing Wargaming Pay to Win in that series did not go the way you would have preferred, and so here we are 9 months later. And I'm sure the great majority of the competitive EU players expected a similar result. And I believe, if you go back and you watch the PSV Rain series from Sunday, that was an excellent series. I mean, PSV did not win, but they very easily could have. A couple of little things go differently, and PSV wins that series as well. So to me, from that on, if you're the EU competitive guys and you're watching that series, at the end of that series, you go, well, we won, but wow, we almost didn't. Like these guys, the skill level is not as disparate as you might think. And then the fact that you guys were finally able to get over the hump in kind of the big stage, the big show match, and send a message and really kind of tell everybody, look, we can play with you guys. We are here. We are just as good, and we can compete. And to me, if nothing else, that message being sent as forcibly as it can be, because we can say it all day long, but until you prove it on the battlefield, it's just talk. Well, you guys have proved it on the battlefield, so on behalf of myself and what I would like to think everybody involved in the NA competitive scene, thank you, because I think everyone is going to get just a little more respect now than we used to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's one thing. I mean, we've always felt... Oh, go ahead, Patu.
I was going to say, at least we won't get a team killed after the show match this time.
Don't do that while I'm drinking water, man.
We had a couple of that after COTS 5.
Yeah, I remember. There were some dumb incidents.
The compliments are welcome rather than bullets and torpedoes. So
yes. Go ahead, BFK.
I think one thing that that was very important to me and the guys is, we've always felt that at the upper tier, there are great players on all servers, regardless of which server you are on. But the running narrative was that whatever NA Unicums or EU red players, and I think it's just important to show that at the very top, as in anything, there are going to be a whole bunch of people distributed pretty evenly across all the regions, and I think we kind of showed that.
Absolutely.
Well, I would disagree completely. Purple is purple. Purple is purple, regardless of the server. So that's bullshit.
I say that as well. Yep, I say that as well.
That's because Sneaky just bathes in the purple.
It goes with population too. Like obviously, higher population, you're gonna have a higher concentration of good. So obviously, they're gonna have a lot more very verse players over there because of the high population pool. And more so in Russia. So, I mean, being able to, with our small community, being able to stand up was, I think, a big feat. And it's nice, like you said, after all the years of getting our teeth kicked in to win.
Agreed. And also potentially shift the meta as well. It's one of the best things that NA could have hoped for.
CV rework.
Yeah.
Before the CV.
Right. I tell you, I've been playing competitive card games, not Magic, but other kinds of CCGs on and off for 25 years. And it's one of the things that you notice, right? Whenever there's a big meta-defining tournament, that something that people didn't really expect shows up, and even if it doesn't win, if it performs really well, suddenly you look back and the next time there's an event or a similar event, people are trying it, right? Other people have taken, they're going to take that and they're going to try and adapt it themselves. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I completely agree with the comment you said earlier that, and I think it was you, Warlord, that said it, that was, if we were to do another one of these in 4 weeks, that the Midway Worcester thing would be a thing. There would be teams that forced that onto the board, tried to make that work. And I completely agree with you, just because I've seen it happen in countless other games that function in a similar manner.
Yep.
Awesome.
I have. I'm sorry. I have so many other questions.
Go.
that you guys
Keep
don't
going.
Fun, go.
Okay, so when you were playing on the EU server at the very beginning, I made a comment about lag, about the fact that the latency is a little bit higher on the EU server than maybe we're used to on NA. Did you guys feel that? I think Warlord, even at one point you commented that in like game 2 at the start or something. So I was just wondering if you guys felt like that was the case, and if so, how did you get past that, and how did it affect you?
So for me in particular, the ping hovered at around 100 to 130, which is not that high. It only, when it starts getting near 180 is when you start having issues as a carrier, because you have to have that fine fighter control and things like that. But I personally did not find the latency to be much of an issue whatsoever on the EU server.
I know a lot of us beforehand went in and went into trading rooms, test out settings and stuff, make sure that's the way we had it. We even had a nice game where I played a Stalingrad and sailed right into the enemy and get my teeth kicked in as just kind of a boost. Hey, this is what's going to happen when we play Omni. Just kidding. That's not really. But, we did do some a little bit of testing before just to get comfortable with the ping and playing on a different server.
Yeah, actually, my connection was pretty good. I was about 90 to 100 most of the time.
90.
Yeah, I think
Ooh.
most of us were sitting just around the low 100, maybe 110 at the most. But other than that, EU was pretty much a just walk in the park for connection-wise.
Yep.
No issues.
Smooth 80 to 90 for me.
That's about what we
Alright.
saw from Austin as well, somewhere around 100. It was pretty steady.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why we go over there, because they have a much better infrastructure for that stuff set up. So
Agreed.
So one other question, going back to Saturday night, so the NA finals, you guys are against PSV. I can't remember if it was game 2 or 3 when PSV said, screw all this Worcester stuff, and they took out their Stalingrads, and you guys got rolled hard. Or not rolled hard, but what I mean.
Yeah.
Like you
We
guys,
got
No,
rolled.
on Islands of Ice, they got rolled hard.
Yeah,
we got rolled.
you got rolled
That
hard.
was-
I mean, I don't think we win that game, even if Warlord doesn't disconnect. I mean,
No.
we were thoroughly beat that game, I think.
The worst part of that match for me was all of my bombers were getting ready to strike something. Like they were collecting south of ACAP, and then I disconnect when I was about to actually send them out to strike something. That was probably the worst. But yeah, game 4, most certainly it was a surprise to us, and it took us one more match to get situated on Shatter.
I think a lot of it, we had a discussion too about that match. It just seemed like we were on the run from the get-go. I mean, we're pulling back from each side of the map, just boxing us in the corner, which that experience helped us because game 1 of Omni, we're up against the wall, down 300 points, but we flipped the switch, start pushing in, and it totally turned that game. I mean, totally turned the series. I mean, anytime it goes 3-2, we need that game or we lose the whole thing. But that moment getting rolled by PSV and getting our teeth kicked in, I think did help us down the road in further matches.
Awesome.
Actually, I did think of one other one. I noticed when I looked at the tournament page that you guys did drop a game to Rogue Fleet. I didn't hear anything about that set. I don't think it was being streamed by anybody.
No, it wasn't.
That never happened.
Wait, what? Wait.
Let me see what they did on that map.
Huh?
I'm honestly curious.
I am
honestly
too, actually.
curious.
Well,
In
what
all
it is,
honesty, that was us just being very cocky about it and not
Okay.
Well-
giving
Well,
any
full-
respect.
full
not
dis-
not
full
no, not only
disclosure on-
that. We don't, with our comp, we don't like the diagonally situations because they're too spread out. So we like the straight north to south map, which usually we would ban, but we didn't have a chance because it was the round of 16.
That's right. You don't get that option.
So we
I
had
only
to play a map that we weren't comfortable with, and that was before we started, evolving our comp, and we made mistakes and we lost the game. Nothing
Okay.
more to say than that.
I think it's
I only ask because we had a surprising number of really strong teams that were playing in their first King of the Sea. TNG, Buenos Noches, RF, like they came into the round of 16 and honestly did, really good. So I was just curious because,
I mean, actually, I think you'll find this interesting, but RF brought a midway all 3 games against us. Now their midway didn't successfully strike any of our shifts, but they still did take a game off of. Yeah.
I actually spoke to Saints fan, I believe it is. I told them, you guys are on a good track. Keep doing what you're doing, practice, and you guys will be fine.
I think something too that should be mentioned is the Friday before, so it would have been the semifinals and then the finals for NA. Before we play those games, we scrimmed RIP. We scrimmed RIP that night, and that was by far our worst performance we have ever had.
yes, I remember that.
During that scrim, I mean, they rolled us every game. I mean, we did not really put up a good effort. So that was kind of a galvanizing point for us going forward to heading into when we needed to, like, hey, we're not invincible and we need to get our stuff together or it's going to end up really bad for us.
Was that when we played you guys on Warriors Path and North, if I recall correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
We actually got beat in our scrims the night before, so we were humbled right before the most important weekend. I think, like McNutt had said, brought some perspective to a lot of people.
Well, you found a 5th gear, so
6th gear, my man.
6th? Oh shit! All right, that was impressive. Yeah, definitely.
all right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to come hang out with us this evening. It was fun to replay the matches here on my channel and have you guys drop in and just chat with us for a little while and answer some questions. I probably need to get out of here just because I still got to finish packing. I got a plane to catch. Seth and I are going to Anaheim tomorrow. Anybody here going, by the way? Bueller?
Post problem.
Damn it! Damn it!
No.
All right, we're the shot.
I was gonna say if any of you guys found me, I'll give you a hug.
Oh, I think they'd rather take a beer.
Well, you guys,
Yeah,
you guys deserve
I'd
it for
take
all that. I mean, the hours you guys put into this. I mean,
Definitely. all the admins, all the organizers, streamers, adjudicators, all that stuff. You guys
deserve a
good
lot
job.
of
Well,
credit.
yeah, you guys deserve a lot of credit. We appreciate it as players that we're able to do.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate you guys showing up and playing well and making us look good. So thanks.
hope for NA, boys.
Oh my god.
Setting the meta.
That's right.
DFK is gonna float away.
All right, guys. Well, look, I'm gonna call this here just so I can finish up and get some sleep. But I appreciate you guys dropping by. Congrats again for not only the victory, but just for playing so well. Even if you hadn't won, I would have loved to have had you guys come do this because, just that was an amazing, amazing series to watch. And we're all going to be watching and enjoying those matches for a while. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Later.
All right, guys. We'll catch you guys later.
See ya.